On this week's episode of the Bet the Process podcast, Jeff and I get reflective. We talk about emotional vulnerability, shame, guilt, people pleasing, vertical versus horizontal relationships, Enneagram types. But then we talk about something far deeper and more serious, the PGA Championship at Aronimink with Andy Lack, a brilliant golf mind who walks us through the nuances of the course, what skills will matter, what skills won't, and even leaves us with a few picks. Plus, you get, hopefully, a Bet the Process heater pick from myself as well. Bet the Process, as always, is sponsored by Novig, which is America's #1 sports trading app. I use it. You get fantastic prices there. And if you don't believe me, I asked my good friend AI what people are saying about Novig. And Novig is being described as a high potential game changer in the sports betting industry, widely praised for its commission-free peer-to-peer exchange model that offers superior odds compared to traditional sports books. So get on there if you haven't, and let's start the process.
Welcome to another episode of the Bet the Process podcast, where Rufus is in Vegas and he's wearing a Travis Matthew hat.
Oh,
Trying to look.
you remember where I got this hat, right?
I do not.
At the Bet the Process Open.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Slash whatever it was called, the
The
Napa
Troon
Wine
Access
Access Charity Wine
Charity,
thing.
blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
Yeah, they had a putting contest and I sank the um I don't know what it was, the 25 footer or whatever.
Nice. You're playing at a member guest, huh? Your first ever member guest?
Yeah. Yeah, what do I need to know, Jeff?
I've only played in like two. I mean, you need to play to your play better than your handicap. What's your handicap right now?
I think 9.8,
Oh, so that's a high number for you. So that's good.
I guess. I
You were
mean,
down to like a four at one point,
I
weren't
think it was
you?
like a 5 at one point, but that was three
Yeah, I don't want
years
to play
ago.
you now. Oh, I don't play you now. I guess we're gonna play in Vegas, so that'll be fun when we play.
I
So
just
are you in Vegas until then?
Yes.
Holy cow, it's a
I've
lot of
I've I've
Vegas.
been in Vegas for a week too. Or I got here last Thursday. Wednesday. So I've been here almost a week. And
Nice.
carless too. My car is in the shop, but I think I get to pick it up today.
What kind of car do you drive in Vegas?
I have a BMW 3 Series.
Nice. Oh, I
It
think you picked
honestly
me up in that
gets
car before. That's the same car you picked me up in a long time ago, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've just like I bought it after Eli and I broke up back in like 2021 because I didn't know where I was going to live and I was like, I need a car. And it just basically it gets not a ton of mileage in Vegas because I'm only here less than half the time and I'm in the arts district where I can kind of like
Fewer
walk a lot
fewer
of
than half the
places.
time. Yeah.
But
Okay, so question for you. Life question. You are the most successful that you've ever been in your life right now, right?
by what metrics?
By money. You have more money now than you've ever had in your life.
Isn't that what most people do at
Sure,
this age? You
sure.
could argue that everybody's that
You've
way
you've
though.
never really been a luxury item purchaser.
Correct.
Is there anything that you are thinking of purchasing now that you have a surplus of cash?
Um, I'd say the thing very expensive real estate, I'll put it that way.
You're thinking of buying a place on a golf course, right? Is that right?
Not on a golf course potential like necessarily, but like I'm thinking of maybe I'm looking at buying in one of the Discovery properties.
That's legit, dude. That's
Thanks.
some real that's a real moment in your life. That's like Rufus Peabody 2.0.
Well, I mean, I feel like if it adds to my quality of life at this point, why not do it?
I mean, it would be
There's
hard for that not to add. And I'm still like
our
not sure if
friend.
you're winning better. So the fact that you're able to do that makes me think maybe you are winning
It's
better.
all the trust fund, man.
What do your parents even do to have such a big trust fund?
Well, they're retired, but my dad was an architect. He had his own small practice.
But your parents are not rich, right?
No, they're middle class.
So where did the rumor about your trust fund come from?
I don't know.
Because I feel like
I think it was who someone was like, you can't actually make a lot of money betting on sports. I think that's what it came from.
how many people do you know of that have amassed a real like net worth from betting on sports?
Well, it's how many sport, I don't know. I mean, the people I've worked with over my career, like,
So
Zach and Train
that's
and
like
those
tangentially
guys.
that's like six or seven people, right?
Um, I assume Matt David has.
Sure.
Um,
Do you think there are a lot more now with like prediction markets and DFS and all that kind of stuff that there's just like, if you rewind like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, let's say the mo amount of people that are actually being able to make real money in sports betting was probably a lot smaller.
yeah, there just were fewer people in it. The market was smaller in a way too. It wasn't, I mean, I do think now the global market has gotten bigger. The global market shrunk for a long period of time, it felt like. You had places that weren't offering bigger limits, in fact, and then despite like inflation, it was like the Westgate still was like $2,000 a bet, 50, for 15 years.
Right.
Well, but I was
Yeah.
going to say, to your point about like, I mean, quality of life, or maybe it was to my point about quality of life. Our friend Will Tudor Evans said that there aren't a lot of things where you can spend money that'll actually make you happier. And this is why he likes flying. He flies business class on long trips from, he's got to fly from Bali. So when he comes to the States, that's a long trip because getting a good night's sleep actually does improve his quality of life. And there are very few areas where spending money will improve your quality of life.
You just said two things though. You said quality of life and you also said happy. Like you said happy first, and
Okay.
that's
Makes you
different than
happier.
quality of life, right? Like the
I would argue you're going to be happier if you sleep more, if you're
well,
more well
but there's
rested.
there's two like I think buying random shit like that, buying like a great bottle of wine makes you happy,
It
but it
does.
doesn't improve your quality of life really. Probably makes your quality of life worse because you're drinking alcohol and you have a quick dopamine hit of happiness, but it's not your quality of life is probably not better.
Well, so I don't think of happiness as like instantaneous happiness. I think of happiness more as sort of broad contentment,
Fulfillment.
fulfillment. Well,
But that's like different than, I mean, this is like a very esoteric conversation, but I think quality of life and happiness, you're equating the two as synonymous, and I guess I'm not.
I think you're right. You're talking about happiness more in the sort of short term, whereas I'm thinking of happiness not like, whoa, this made me happy, but more like, hey, like I'm feeling more peaceful and content. Like,
How's your search for happiness going?
honestly, I've been too busy lately to like be searching that hard.
Do you do
But
you
I
wait, did
will
we talk
say,
about do you know what Enneagram type you are?
oh, I talked about this with Cade when I was in Austin. I think he thought I was a seven. Let me see. Which one is that? Because I almost went to this Enneagram workshop in Esalen, but the dates didn't work out for me. I just had this idea. I saw it, and it was like literally the week
You should
after.
go. I'm telling you, like Enneagrams, like we do
Well,
a lot of
it's in
work
the
on
past.
Enneagrams and learning
Yeah.
a lot about like what our types are and like how it, I've been actually like listening to this book called The Courage to be Disliked. And it's about this it's like this philosopher named Adler. And I had never heard of this guy before, but the courage to be disliked is this fascinating study. And now the second one is the courage to be happy. And so I've been like listening to the courage to be happy now also. It's like a really good thing to listen to books at night when you're trying to like sleep. And because like I have trouble sleeping because I'm old AF.
I do too, man.
And I
I
have
feel
trouble
like
sleeping through the night because I'm old AF and I like to drink wine, which neither contributes well to your sleep. But what I do when I can't sleep now is I'll put the book on and I'll listen to it. And obviously, since I really want to focus and listen to it, it's hard sometimes to fight off
Yeah.
sleep, right? Because then you're not thinking about sleeping, you're thinking about focusing, and I often drift off, and like it's tough because you'll have to go back and listen to it. But I have a feeling that I'm going to listen to these books multiple times because I think there's a lot to get out of it.
Can I say they don't tell you when you're young that as you get older, like your sleep gets worse. It gets hard. Like I have no trouble at all falling asleep, but it's like every night I wake up like after like 5.5 or 6 hours and I have to like get myself back to sleep.
How much sleep do you need?
I feel like I need 7 hours, like 7 to 8. I don't know
I
because
mean,
I feel like I don't have alarms set most mornings except today, but I still feel like I don't sleep as much as I should. Like I still
I don't know the last time I've ever really used an alarm. The only time I ever use an alarm is like when I have like a really early flight and I've got to
Yep.
wake up at some ungodly hour, like 3:30 or
But if
4.
you told me this like when I was in college or something that I wouldn't need to set an alarm, I'd be like, yeah, I'm getting all the sleep I need every night. It would be
Yeah.
no issue at all. Cause like now it's like I have the time. I just am not sleeping as much as I'd
Well,
like.
so what's funny is because I go to bed so early generally now because I have kids, right? I'll go to bed at like I'll fall asleep sometimes between 8 and 9 p.m., right? And so if you do that and you wake up at say 5 a.m., that's a lot of sleep still.
That is a lot of sleep. That's a lot of
But you
sleep.
would never think about waking up at 5 a.m. as like a lot of sleep. But when you go to bed so effing early, it is a lot of sleep.
Are you sleeping like 8 hours a night?
I don't sleep through, but I do think like even though I get up at very early hours often because I go to bed so early, like I get more sleep than I realize. I probably get more sleep now than I ever have in my life
Wow.
because even no, but it's not great sleep often. It's like interrupted. It's like in the middle of the night. But like if I do sleep, get a good night of sleeping through the night, it ends up being like 8 hours. And I don't think I ever in my younger years slept 8 hours because I probably went to bed at like midnight or 12:30. And if I wake up at 7 or 8, that's still not that much sleep.
I mean, Jeff, I remember the days like my first year betting professionally where I would pull an all-nighter for every like Friday during the football season. Or this was only one fall I did this. And then Saturday night, I'd get maybe 3 hours of sleep. And then Sunday, I would literally go to bed at 8 p.m. and wake up at noon the next day.
So
Like
do you
I
have
would
any
sleep 16 hours somehow. And now, even if I pulled an all nighter the night before, maybe I'll get 9 hours the next night. I don't know.
do you have any early thoughts on this PGA Championship?
Wait, I wanted to talk more about what you, before we get to the PGA Championship, which we're going to have Andy Lack on, and we're going to talk a lot about that, who's got
Oh,
incredible
do I have
knowledge.
to listen to it then? I guess I got to listen to
Yeah,
it
you're
because I'm
going to
not
have
going
to
to be
listen
part
to
of
it,
the
Jeff.
interview.
Um, as he and I have been chatting on the side, and like the quality of his information and the way he like looks at things is very different than I do, and I find it really fascinating. It's
I
certainly
think
more
I wanted to talk to
detailed.
him about what the hell was the name of the show? Industry. I think he talked about industry on his, and I really liked industry, so I think I wanted to talk to him about that. So I'm
Wait,
bummed that I'm missing the interview because I just wanted to talk to him about industry.
okay, but I wanted to comment on what you said about the courage to be disliked and stuff. And I've actually been working with this coach. I call him my man coach, but
Mhm.
he's a coach guy, and
Went from man coach to coach guy.
well, he doesn't only work with men, but I think he specializes in like entrepreneurs that have been successful and are kind of looking for the next thing and to sort of find fulfillment and stuff like that. And what I've realized is how much actually like guilt and disappointment like are huge motivators for me and like shame and like running from that. Like that I didn't even know that. Like I do so many things. Sorry. I apologize all the time because I just don't want to feel, I don't want to let people down. I avoid commitments often because if I have a commitment, then I can disappoint somebody and then I'll feel shame for that. I feel like guilt for like little things that I don't want to say I probably shouldn't, but I mean, like an example even is the fact that like my brother works in my betting group, and I feel like a huge sense of responsibility because like what happened, like I took him on this path. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
what if I decided to stop? Like, and I think he's certainly has the skill set where he would be very valuable um to a lot of different people in this space or elsewhere, but it's sort of trying to avoid this feelings of guilt and disappointing people. And an exercise I had to do 2 weeks ago, a homework assignment, which like I kid you not, this was maybe the hardest thing I've ever had to do, Jeff. I had to ask a stranger to buy me something at a store, something of like more than $2. And I couldn't lie about why I was doing it. I couldn't say, hey, I forgot my wallet. And I couldn't tell them that this was an exercise, even when I was done. And I just had to like sit with that.
What was the what I mean, what was your premise behind why you needed to do this
Well, I think I have trouble asking people
for
for help, and I
favors?
have trouble sitting with discomfort too. Like,
That's
what's so
great.
funny?
No, no, I mean it's great. Like I think it's brilliant. I mean, knowing
It,
you as well as I know you and having you have to do that, I think that's a great exercise.
I agree, and I knew it gave me anxiety just thinking about it for a week, and I like planned to do it the day before, actually the day of our next session. And I had asked for accountability, so he said, "Okay, if you don't do it, you have to pay me $5,000." So I was like, "I'm definitely going to do it." Um, and I did, and I had to audio record it too, and it was pretty fantastic.
Did you get the guy to buy you
I,
something?
the first person, no, but this I tried. The second person, yes.
Was the accountability around getting someone to do it, or was it just asking someone to do
The
it?
accountability was asking somebody, getting someone to do it. I
Why
said,
did you do it
okay.
after this? Why did you do it after the second time? Because you really needed the thing?
I don't even because well, he had said I'd been like, okay, if I'm giving you $5,000, if I don't do it, if I do it, will I get $1,000 off? Like
And
if
he
I do
said
it
no.
successfully? And he said yes. He agreed. Here
So
we
you did it successfully. And are you going to accept $1,000 from this poor person that you pay a lot of money
well,
to?
he's just going to invoice me a little less. It's great. Can
A
I
little fewer?
do you want me to play this audio recording of the first one because
Yeah,
it's short?
thousand
Okay,
percent.
here we go. Let's see if I can
This
if
is
this
this
will.
is
You ready?
this is
This
the
is great
content
content.
people
I'm gonna do
come
it into the
for.
microphone here. Hey, do you want to buy this one? Or want to buy that one? You want to buy it? Yeah. Okay. Well, just figured I'd give you the chance. Okay. That was the first guy.
Wait, tell me what they said again?
I don't know how clearly that came up, but what I said was, "Hey, do you want to buy this for me?" Like what I realized is I just had to be confident and just step up and own it like it was something that like I was giving them a chance to like I was offering them an opportunity. It's like, "Hey, do you want to buy this for me?" And he was like, "No." Like and he gave me a look like, "Why?" It's like, "I don't know. I just thought I'd give you the chance." And the second person, the one where I did succeed, you want me to pull like I don't know how clear did the audio come through of that?
It didn't come through that great.
Oh
It's
damn.
not great. It's not great content because the audio
The
is not
the
coming
the,
through
the
great.
second person said it was a woman who I actually had I started the conversation. I'd said something because she was wearing a shirt of a restaurant that I like and turns out she works there. And so I like kind of I was like, I'm gonna have more of a chance of being successful, I think, if I make a little bit of conversation first. And then I had some sort of like fancy drink that was like $5, okay, at a bodega. Um, and so I say, hey, you want to buy this for me? She's like, no, no, but I can. Um, and I said, well, only if you want to. And then she said, okay, sure. And
Wait, can you explain to them afterwards, or you're not even allowed to
no.
explain to them afterwards?
And
You're just
then
like, you have to like
and
basically
then she said,
go,
and then she's like, you're funny.
did you get her number or anything? I mean, I feel like if you go on a date with her, you can probably tell her afterwards, right? I mean, like once you clear the air, she's gonna think you're like poor. She's gonna be like, "Wait, you are one of the most successful sports bettors in the world, but yet you needed me to pay for your $5, whatever drink, prime drink from Logan
Now she
Paul."
probably needs to think she needs to like me to justify doing that now.
It's an interesting psychology, right, of what she probably thinks of you in that moment, where she's probably like, "Oh, he's this kind of like." I mean, you're probably dressed poorly because normally you dress poorly, so you look like a
Wait,
homeless
that's
guy.
I normally dress poorly in Vegas, and I don't think I dress poorly when I'm well, but if I'm going to a bodega,
Rufus, it's a joke,
okay,
okay? I don't think you dress poorly, but
okay,
I think
okay.
in that
No, I mean,
scenario, you were probably dressed.
I do
I,
dress poorly a lot of the time.
my
Like
my guess is in that
when if
scenario,
I'm
you were
going to
not
a
dressed that
bodega,
fancily.
at like noon, I'm probably wearing sweats.
That's what I'm saying. Like you probably looked relatively
Yeah.
homeless. You were unshaven. You're like,
No.
you have
I
this
don't think
hat that doesn't really fit you. You look like you got
I
the
think I
hat
was
out of
wearing a
a,
hoodie. I was not wearing a hat. I was wearing a hoodie and sweats.
well,
I mean, so it's basically.
anywho, did we talk about this? Oh yeah, we talked about anywho and how you spell anywho.
Yeah, you and I both were in the same boat.
Yeah, I'm
I think
still in
of
that
who
boat, but there
because
are
it's like,
people that are not in our boat.
but
Okay. Anything
you know what's funny
else?
though? I talked to Tom about some of this, and Tom is like, "Wait, you have issues of like guilt, like, and you worry about that." He's like, he was very surprised that he's like, I thought I was the one that did, but I think for me, it's like more under the surface, and like I can't if I'm processing like negative emotions. Well, first off, I repress many emotions, but I can't like express deep vulnerability about negative emotions to people until I figure out the emotions myself and like essentially figure out how to deal with it. So like I internalize it first. And then if I can then rationalize it or feel like I've overcome it, then I'll share that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can't say, hey, like I'm feeling like disconnected and feeling like overwhelmed and I don't really know why. But what's really helped me, and sorry, I know we're going off the rails away from the PGA Championship, but what kind of helped me too is the brief period of emotionally focused couples therapy that I did,
Hmm.
which is like really good, and I like highly recommend it to anybody. Um, where like I sort of learned to just sort of express that emotion and express things as like it's not I need this from you. It's not on a rational logistical basis. It's like this made me feel this way. And I think encouraging me to then be able to say, "Hey, I felt this way when you said that," and but I think that it's actually motivated me too. Now that I'm not in a couple, I'm actually in emotionally focused therapy, emotionally focused singles therapy, although it's not just for singles.
I mean, I think the core for me, and this is like what I've been learning a lot about, just generally this stuff is like it's always about you more than anything. Not you, in this case, me.
Well, I know,
It's always
Jeff,
about it's
everything's
always about me more than anything in terms of like what my issues are, right? Like my issues with you and you and I fight are really less about you or anything that you do and more about me.
really
And so,
because so I internalize it all, and I feel like I feel like I'm not good enough all the time. Where you say
well,
something
you're not.
like
So,
you're like Rufus, I need you to do more, and I felt this way in my relationship where I was like, I can't be like I felt disappointment at not being able to provide what my partner needed. But you know what's funny is I never actually asked thought to sort of say what I needed. And it turns out I was just trying to sort of make her happy. And it turns out that um there are things that I definitely needed that I wasn't getting. And I don't know how I went on a tangent into that, but I do think that I, I feel like I don't want to say I feel like sometimes I feel like you think not you think you're better than me, but I feel like sometimes like you are better than me in a lot of areas. And it's I am
So like
not the
this
most
whole
on
this
top of my I'm not the most on top of my shit like administratively and like
yeah, but
scheduling
like,
wise.
so this is, by the way, this
And
is
it
kind of
makes me
like,
feel less than when you say things like
listen, I what I'm about to say to
I
you
try, man, I try.
is the fundamental thing that I'm learning from this this book. And we're gonna go right into the PGA Championship after this. But like there's this concept of horizontal and vertical relationships, and like in life, you should strive for horizontal relationships because
Oh,
vertical
I love
relationships
this.
just create like this dynamic. And I think that you and I have always had this kind of like vertical relationship, and that's like what has caused the strife that we've had is the way that you
It
feel when you're in the way that I like lump onto you. And we really should have a horizontal relationship because
Why do you
like
think it's a vertical relationship?
I think that the exactly what you're talking about, where you think
Isn't
I'm
that
better than you at
dynamic?
certain things or whatever, like I think that like I'm not saying that it
Well, no.
actually is, but I think when we get into problems, it's when we think of ourselves as having a vertical relationship. Right. And I'm saying like when I lump onto you or like make you feel like crap about something, that's me like treating you as below me.
What's a
Or
dynamic? It's like I feel like the child that isn't good enough
yeah,
again,
that
right?
I mean, I'm surprised that you disagree with that statement. And I'm not saying necessarily that it's a truism. I'm just saying that the way it's positioned.
That it's our like I think most relationships have elements that are both vertical and horizontal, probably. And you want to avoid those vertical elements. And look, in my past relationship, there were times when I kind of felt, it felt the same way in some senses. But it was, I mean, obviously very much a horizontal relationship, but I think there's interactions. And I like to sort of say, generally speaking, I think, well, I guess having kids, like that is very much a vertical relationship, right?
But
But
I think one of the issues is that you don't want it to be, right? And that's what I'm like
no, I
learning
definitely,
about a little bit in how you raise kids personally. But you like I was clearly in a vertical relationship with my parents, and
oh,
again, like this book is fascinating. We should talk about it more tonight at for a drink after dinner. So let's let,
can I add something that that I kind of feel strongly about,
sure.
and
And
it's
then we're really gonna go because I have my day to get along with. So
yeah, and so do I. So I love like meeting new people and sort of random interactions, and it turns out a big reason probably is because then there's no expectation. So I'm avoidant as fuck. So
yeah.
there's no expectation, so I can just be the best version of myself in those moments. But when I meet anybody, like I like meeting people as like an equal, like completely horizontal. It doesn't matter if they're like a celebrity. Like I met John Hamm watching the Commanders
We've
Eagles.
heard this
Right.
story before.
And I didn't tell him I knew who he was. We just talked like we were like just two guys at a bar. And
Yeah.
it doesn't matter who the person is, like or someone that is, not John Hamm, right? It's like I just want to engage with somebody at that level of like we are two humans having a conversation. None of us is better than the other. And I mean, those are the conversations I love.
All right. Uh, you can have Andy Lack on, which is cool. You guys can talk PGA Tour, and we'll talk to you guys all again.
Do you
Next,
do you remember
what?
last year's British Open when we lacked Andy Lack?
Yes, we lacked Andy Lack.
But this we're gonna get to make up for it this afternoon.
Okay.
So
Uh,
okay. And now we'll welcome in Andy Lack.
Bet, bet, bet the
We
price.
now welcome into the Bet the Process podcast Andy Lack. Andy was originally going to be on the podcast last year for the British Open, but he stood us up. So this is his chance for
Not true.
redemption. So no pressure at all, Andy. And Andy, by the way, you missed the segment we already recorded with Jeff, where we were just talking about like the role of guilt and shame and vertical and horizontal relationship. So it was very non PGA Championship. We just kind of, this is what happens when you've done 370 podcasts with somebody. But now we are ready to talk about something that I'm very passionate about, and I know you are too, in golf and the PGA
Yeah.
Championship. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. I was really like it was a true Eastern Pacific time zone screw up by me mainly last time for the British Open. But I would never I'm a listener of Bet the Process. And now we have been talking about golf more. You and you've come on mine, and obviously I love doing that, but we'll have to figure out a way for me to chat with Jeff in the future because I think he's brilliant as well.
Well, he's the one that works in golf, although I guess I
I
work in
know.
golf too.
Is it Troon?
True.
Yeah, Troon, right. That's right.
But I will say, like, yes, I really enjoyed talking to you before the Masters, but the messages, the texts that you've sent, our text exchanges, like I'm kind of blown away by your course knowledge and the sort of a way you approach things, which, I come from more of a data background, and so I think it's orthogonal. Like you are looking at very, very specific things that it's very hard to build models off of. Um, for example, like how far, the bunkering on this hole with this guy's ball flight, right?
Yeah.
It's super granular and I love it.
Well, I mean, like to a certain extent, right? Because like I'm a huge admirer of what you do as well, and I actually like I changed the entire way that I model heading into this 2026 PGA season, which was like kind of maybe a weird thing to do because I've had a lot. I built my whole career and had success doing it this other way in the past, but I kind of started to realize that I don't know if archaic is the right word, but basically like really listening to you and like you and Matt from Data Golf are kind of like my two pillars. Like you guys are like not necessarily mentors, but like more of like North Stars for me. Where I try and like bring my architecture thing into the mix, but it's really interesting to talk about data with you because I've just like I've learned to you have to evolve, right? Which I'm sure that
Yeah.
like
Oh my
you've
God, yes.
understand more than anyone over the years. But like I got to a point last year where the way I was modeling, like there would be a good example of it would be like there would be times in my modeling where like I would look at somebody who got like heavy steam on bookmaker, whether that be you causing the steam or like somebody else or somebody that was like really popping in data golf modeling. And I realized I was just like missing those guys from time to time. I couldn't figure out why like other people that I really respect and were smart were getting on players that I wasn't seeing as good plays. And so I changed up a couple things this year, and the sample size is still probably too small to figure out how successful it's been. But it's been great going back and forth with you and learning some more myself.
I mean, I think that's a beautiful approach in general. And it's a great way to learn. You sort of see, and I try to do the same thing as much as I can. I'm like, why am I so much lower on Maverick McNeely? For example, and by the way, I'm going to stick to my guns there, but
You
I'm
were
much
correct about the Masters. We talked about Mav at the Masters,
well,
and
Data Golf still loves him a lot more, but I think especially too, like, so the golf market, I would say for the most part is like the numbers are mostly a combination of like me and Data Golf, I would say.
completely.
And I don't mean to say um, I don't mean that in a with all humility. I don't know, but
Well, it's
it's just
just
the way
true.
it's evolved.
Like, yeah, it's just true. Yeah.
But I know how much influence Data Golf has, and I know that every year it seems like they're adding new features to their model, and I'm like, God damn it, that's an advantage that I had because I know I'm doing that, and I was doing that, and they weren't, and it's really, and so I have to keep evolving, and like just last night, or actually it was yesterday during the day, I was doing some research on like some stuff about how majors play differently,
Yeah.
um, and using some very, very granular data, and like was like shocked at how significant a certain thing I found was. And I'm not going to even hint at what it was. But the interesting thing was that then I looked and I was like, well, let's just for thoroughness sake see if this has any impact on all events as a whole. And it was like really incredibly statistically significant. And I was like absolutely shocked. I thought there was a bug in the data somewhere, like that these variables were contaminated somehow. Um, until I thought more, iterated with a golf physics friend of mine, and realized that it was a proxy for something else that was real, and I didn't even think would. I mean, there's still but what I'm saying is there's so much left to uncover. I was like, there's no way that this isn't already priced in by, based on traditional stats and a golfer's performance.
No,
It was one of those things where it's like, if you had told me all left-handers are undervalued or something like that, I'd be like, that doesn't make any sense because, it means they've all been underperforming and we'll start overperforming. That's kind of what was my first thought. I was like, it doesn't make sense. But then, anyway, I shouldn't have even. I feel bad hinting at something, but not actually saying anything. But my point is, there's still so much to be found and so much more alpha. And I especially think your approach, like that's certainly something that Data Golf isn't doing. That's not something I'm doing. Apparently, the shot by shot level simulation stuff is something that Logan Matthews was doing 5 years ago. But
Joseph Lamagna, I know, has like fooled around with it too. But yeah, I mean, to your point, even, and I was on a call with Matt from Data Golf earlier this week about Aronimik, who had very great things to say about you, obviously. But
likewise,
yeah, no, I know,
you're a smart guy, and I love what they built.
Yes, me too.
I just wish they didn't exist.
I kind of feel the same way sometimes. And but what's interesting is like he will tell you something along the lines of, like it is very important for us to be very rigid and like religious in our processes to the data. So like, for example, and I have some disagreements with the way that Data Golf is thinking about Aronimik, not like a ton, like conceptually I say it pretty similar to them, but there's like a few small things that I would put my manual tweak on. And that's what's so interesting about Data Golf is like, there's still quite a bit of edge if you are willing to like price in your own opinion on a golf course. Because like Matt was very clear about the fact that like, because I pushed him a little bit, I was like, I said this in other words, but I was basically like, I think you may not be factoring in enough the difference between how Aronimik played in 2018 and 2020 and how it's going to play this year in 2026 and how much the golf course has changed.
Wait, where did it play? What was in 2020?
Sorry, 2018, the BMW.
Right. You said 2018 and 2020. Was it like the US Senior or something like that?
No. Well, perhaps, but I meant to say just 2018.
2018 is the post renovation.
Yeah, 2018, the BMW where it was 20 under, and by the way, like one of the most rain affected golf tournaments in the last decade. Like it was a torrential downpour, and he was like, like you're right. I should probably think about the changes a little bit more, but the problem is that once I start going in there and putting my own opinion on it, then I feel like I'm losing a bit of the integrity of what I'm trying to do. And so what becomes the line? And I thought that was a really like interesting and smart thing to say because he was kind of acknowledging his own shortcomings at the same time of like still understanding that the broader process that he's trying to stick to is incredibly important for different people. And he has thousands upon people that are betting on his model. And so when you start putting your own opinion into the mix, like what becomes the line? How do you justify that if you're wrong versus it's easier to justify like, hey, look, I'm not a slave to the data, but like I have a process that I'm able to replicate and formulate every week. And that's where I think it's interesting because like I'm a little bit more willing to put my opinion into it, but I am also not serving as many people as Data Golf are, or
But look,
betting millions of dollars like you are.
I'm honestly, I'm like Matt on this. You know, you could tell me something and I'm like, yeah, this probably has some impact, but if I don't know how to if I
Quantify it.
can't quantify it exactly, if I don't have a framework, it's hard to trust myself to be able to properly gauge it. And I mean, something like an injury that's I do put my finger on the trigger there.
Have you heard about Rory's blister today? Has that
I
crossed your desk?
Joseph Lamagna just texted me about it like 30 minutes ago, but uh, luckily, yeah, we already have sold a bunch of Rory contracts on prediction markets, so that's a good.
Free free blister news.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But I just think that, like, I mean, you have to know where your alpha comes from. And for me, my alpha comes from, and Data Golf's alpha comes from their process and their an ability to sort of quantify things and understanding of the distributions and doing a lot of little things right. And so if you kind of just if you get shaped like or swayed by narratives, so like I think it does put you in dangerous territory, and I can't fall back and say why, like, was I correct in doing this? And I think as my modeling gets more and more granular, it's there's more that I will have a framework for evaluating. So I will be able to say, hey, that bunker at 310, like this is not an the a long hitter, like a medium long hitter is going to have to hit a 3 wood and lay up in front of it, but Rory could go over it, and that's a huge advantage for him. It's not like a linear effective driving distance there, right? And so I think when you get the more specific you get, the more a lot of that will kind of come. I won't. My goal is to not need to make those types of adjustments, like to be able
Yeah.
to say, okay, the course is wet, so it's going to do this, you know. But
And the
I'm
data will,
curious,
yeah.
let's get into it.
Okay.
What are the differences that you see, or the things that you feel um, that Matt should have been or willing to put his finger on the trigger?
I, I probably am a little more like interested in the importance of short iron play at this golf course as like a really highly important mechanism to score. I think that because I asked him too about like you've all this great data that you don't use in your model, like strokes gain approach per shot, and we ended up having a long conversation with it that like largely just came back to sample size at the end of the day, and like it's
Well, the
just
strokes gained, I get like the bucket. I mean, they do the buckets.
they do the buckets, but like I he would have told you in the past, and he's moved off this now, but he would have told you in the past that approach is just approach. And I fundamentally don't believe that. I think
Well,
that like I think that players honestly like have swings that are more conducive to long iron play and swings perhaps that are like more comfortable with hitting wedge shots. Not to mention the
yeah.
fact that like approach skill from certain distances is a byproduct of distance. So, like, for example, there's all of these players. I'm trying to think of a really good example of this. A player who doesn't have like a particularly high approach skill, but over indexes that skill on long irons. Gary Woodland, maybe, Minwoo Lee, even Bryson a little
But
bit.
you're saying they don't have skill. Oh, do you mean they just don't have to hit the long irons?
No, I'm saying that they are not particularly skilled overall long iron players, but from 200 yards plus, they are better than they would be on average from approach. And the reason for that is because they're hitting eight
What?
irons.
Yeah.
They're hitting eight irons from 200 yards when a player of less distance is hitting, is hitting medium
So on a
irons.
par three, but at the same time on a par four or something, they're going to be hitting, wedges in while other players might have 8 irons.
Right. So it's like you
So
can't
they,
even really normalize approach buckets unless you're doing it by player, which
right. I
is
mean, so
it's a whole other
I do
rabbit
agree
hole.
that the right approach isn't to say, okay, we should wait this approach bucket this much. It's very much player dependent because of where
Totally
they're
agree.
competing. And I think when you get that granular on things though, I've actually tried this with the approach bucket stuff, and it did not
It didn't
turn
land.
out any alpha
That's
really.
that's interesting.
But a big part of it, I think, too, is that how much I mean, they move around tee boxes and pins too, and so you might think you're going to have like, you might say, okay, this hole's listed at 350, and one day it's playing 380, another day it's playing 310. But
And
one
club
day
choice,
exactly
what if somebody shows up
relays
like
up. It becomes really, you have to model in detail, and then and I think it introduces a lot more things that can go wrong there.
it does. You almost have to like model for a scenario that you think is going to happen, like understanding that a player could show up to the golf course and have had a prior conversation with his coach where the coach tells him like, I don't want you ever hitting driver on this hole. And then, he's playing the hole differently. But I mean, I think like the broader point to get back to Aronimink of something that, and I, to be honest with you, like I haven't listened to a lot of like the pods per se this week to like figure out what the prevailing narratives are about this course. I feel like these are the most fun weeks to me when there is split, like when there's not a true consensus. I think those are the weeks where I probably have the most fun doing my job. But one of the things I did notice that I will say to you about this golf course that I don't know if people are talking about is that I fundamentally do not believe that the bunkers are in places that are going to hinder players of moderate distance. And you could take that in multiple ways, but a good example of this is like hole number 1 at Quail Hollow. Hole number 1 at Quail Hollow, and like this is one of the reasons why Rory loves Quail Hollow so much. And
Oh my God. Yeah, he takes that line over the
he
trees.
takes that line over the trees and like
He's playing a different course than
he's
everybody
playing
else.
a different course there. And so like
Jay Rose did it too, though.
J Rose did it too, but like there's compounding. There's there's an opportunity for Andrew Putnam to have like 125 to 150 yards longer in than Rory if he cuts that corner. And one of the things to me about Aronimink is like a lot of the holes are very straight, very straight. And so I don't know if from a shot shape perspective, Rory now I think I still kind of like underestimate the aggressiveness and the lines that these players take. But I don't know from when I went through the holes if there are enough opportunities to have like compounding distance advantages. And to be honest with you, Rufus, like also like especially on the front nine, okay, so let's say Rory has like a 99th percentile driving week. Like he's on the game with his driver. Based on the way that they put some of these pins, like Rory's still going to need to have a really good short iron
So
week.
you're saying you don't think drivers are going to separate as much? Like 99th percentile Rory driving week is not going to be as many strokes gained relative to the field as it would be at Quail Hollow.
Oh, without a doubt.
Full stop.
I would say that with certainty.
And yeah, and
I'll,
with
I'll totally eat
these
my
big greens.
I'll totally eat my words if I'm
Okay,
wrong.
so what do you so there's Aronimink, big greens,
Mhm.
undulating, and
Really
short
good
irons, more
stuff.
short irons in than you typically see at a PGA Championship. Now, normally PGA Championships separate skill players more than like any other tournament, more than any other major, more than other difficult courses. And I mean, we could speculate as to why, but I think a lot of it's length, long irons in, and difficulty,
Mhm.
right? Now, do you see
But like
that?
fairness also.
In
Like
fairness, right? US Opens are difficult, but they're less fair. So less
right.
randomness.
Right. And
Okay.
same with like the win component of Open
For the
Championship.
show.
I,
Yep.
I I entirely agree with you.
Okay. So given that this is a shorter course, do we still expect that to hold?
I do like I do think that skill is still going to separate on this golf course quite a bit. Like if you think about Valhalla, which was 2024 and was minus point 0.7 under par, and like putting moved the leaderboard more. There was a higher greens in regulation percentage. Like that still featured like an above tour average slope where better players separated at that golf course. And I think part of the reason for it is at PGA Championships, it's like a PGA Tour event plus, right? Like I don't know if I'm phrasing this
They're
the
run
right
by the
way.
PGA, not the USGA. Not the
Yeah, and
LMA.
it's very fair, and you're going to get like really good conditions, really good greens that are in like really good shape. And the other interesting thing about Aronimink is there's not many hazards at this golf course really at all.
But that's like that's basically all major championships, right? I mean, think about like name me one major championship venue that has a ton of hazards. I mean, you can argue Augusta does, but
No, I
not that
wouldn't.
many.
I
Not
wouldn't.
really. No,
I
Augusta, you're
wouldn't
right.
towards
Augusta, you have like
Augusta.
12
I would like where my mind honestly went was some of like the out of bounds stakes that you're seeing at British Opens
British
more
Open,
recently. But
St.
again,
George,
like
Royal St.
that.
George's.
But again, like that is kind of the point of like when you have out of bounds like that's going to often bring more variables into play because variance, I should say, into play because that's like a compounding penalty stroke. And that's like one of the reasons why Matt will say from day, like he started looking at penalty strokes. And I know you do the same thing is it's like,
No
like,
comment.
but I mean, it's important. It's important. It's important to understand that when a golfer hits a shot that misses the green by an inch, rolls back into the water or something, and are losing 1.5 strokes on approach, you like on that shot, you may want to look at thinking about that type of stuff.
Right. I mean, there's the ones that are close, but how do you think about so then like, people love proximity stats, but how do you think about like occasionally like the big miss? Like Rory is a great player, but he will occasionally have a big miss. He's more penalty stroke prone than a John Rahm is, say, or a Scotty is, right? Like if you think about it that way, like if it missed, well,
I know what you're saying.
does proximity then over penalize bad shots?
Well, I don't like looking at proximity. I don't like
No, and
looking
not proximity overall,
yeah,
but I
I know
mean,
what you mean. I know
I'm
what you
just
mean.
the line of thinking
Yeah.
because you're talking about barely missing a hazard, but like, what if a guy hits it 20 yards into the hazard, like chunked one? That's
That deserves the proper weighting, I would say. I'm thinking of like I think Matt Fitzpatrick was like 20 yards into the lake on Sunday at Quail Hollow, which hurt one of my DFS lineups. But I
great.
know
I didn't know
exactly.
anybody was watching Matt Fitzpatrick on Sunday. I didn't know he was on any coverage.
It was like the
He
difference
went at like
between
4 a.m. Pacific time,
it
right?
was like the difference between I think he finished T53 or something. We could talk about Fitz maybe later, but yeah, I mean, I think that is obviously like an important thing to consider at all is like luck, and like the infusion of luck, but generally the counter argument to like luck or variance in golf is, sample size, right? If like you build up a large enough data set, then things are generally going to come to the forefront that seem to be like a more likely outcome. What's interesting about PGAs, though, this was big time the case at Oak Hill, and I think it's going to be the case at Aronimink, is I think you can miss bag at Aronimink on this golf course. And part of the reason for that is tournaments that have more spectators generally are going to have more trampled down lies farther off in the fairway.
Bingo.
Yeah. And so that was a big thing. I just, like I was at Oak Hill and that was like, I just saw it all the time where guys would miss by 30 yards. I remember seeing it at the 2020. What was the US Open that John Rahm at Torrey Pines? That was a big thing there too.
22 maybe?
Yeah, that was a big thing at Torrey Pines too. And I think that's going to be the case at Aronimink. So I texted you this earlier in the week, but I've like model out the impact of a stroke that longer players and shorter players have. And it was really interesting because I saw that accurate players on average, putting noise is going to be a lot of this when it actually plays out. But if you played the tournament 100 times, inaccurate players performed better than their baseline at Aronimink, and accurate players performed better.
You don't want to be in the middle. I mean, that's yeah.
Yeah, it's like which I was trying to square because it's like accurate players got a boost for me, but then also inaccurate players also got a boost for me.
You don't want to live in the middle.
Yeah.
But when you say got a boost, like the whole point is it's not saying it's better to be inaccurate or it's like saying that given your skill level, if a certain amount comes from if a lot of it comes from accuracy, like maybe at this course, at a course that rewards bombers, it will be bad, right?
Yeah.
And so it could be
still,
if you're pretty middle, like yeah.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
guess I could see a world, but wait, does it come across in off the tee numbers? That's what I want to know. Not overall scoring, right? Because like I think when people try to model scoring and say like, I mean, I think you can fit a ton of noise if you're looking at effects of overall score on things that have nothing to do with putting.
Mhm.
And then like maybe the impact was just, big bombers happen to have a really good putting week.
That's been the thing that Data Golf just had a blog post on this for this year's Masters is that like, they have that like bombometer tool and everyone was like, why is Augusta favoring accurate players all of a sudden? And it's like, well, bombers have just significantly at a macro level underperformed with their putters for like 5 years. It doesn't at the Masters. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily mean that Augusta is a better golf course for accurate players than it is longer players. It's just that's why you kind of have to take putting noise out of it. That's what's tricky.
And
well,
I was gonna say, that's what's tricky with course fit in general with a lot of things because you don't have you have there's so much noise in just about everything. Like driving distance and driving accuracy are the things that are going to be the most stable.
They have the highest regression.
I mean, those are right. Like those are things, but if you're going to try to like fit something, like especially if you're doing something like a mixed effects model, if you're going to try to fit something using like strokes gained on approach from less than 100 yards or something that's a little bit where anything where the effect is going to be sort of smaller, like it can bounce around a ton, even just looking at like
that's
and the problem with if you're just looking at like strokes gained approach or something like that, well, that those metrics are very much built off of your app. They're all built based on like average courses, like meaning they don't know the difference between like being in a bunker. Well, they don't know that missing in this spot is really bad, and so you might try to do some strokes gained or a course fit on approach and be like, oh, this really matters or this doesn't matter. And it turns out like the variable that you're using like to quantify it is one that like doesn't realize that this is like this place missing here, especially if the place like the Masters is death. And it just doesn't show up in the numbers of like, 20 yards away from the hole on.
I don't know if you remember that happened at
13 at Augusta.
Yeah.
Right. Like 13 at Augusta. There's some spots like, I mean, what's another good example? I mean, like just based off of the topography and stuff. So like, and I think
I thought the strokes gained at Oakmont was messed up. I thought that they weren't. I was talking to Joseph a little bit about that, but that was another one where I felt like penalty that was showing up around the green was penalty that should have been showing up on approach, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, because the two are really correlated. Off the tee is correlated with approach is correlated with around the green. Because you're gonna say this was a better approach if you think that the around green shot was easier than it was.
Yeah. And you had a situation like Oakmont where if you were missing your approach shot in a wrong place, the a good chip from where you were could have been to 15 feet, literally. And you were getting dinged around the green when you really actually should have been getting dinged on approach. So
And you could say the same thing with putting. And I don't know how much like the baseline strokes gain model that the one that the PGA Tour uses. I don't know how specific they are these days. I mean, I have my own version, but like you don't know if you can have a putt that starts and ends at the same elevation
yeah.
and it's got a huge side break and up a hill and over, and it's a really difficult putt, and that's a spot you really don't want to be. And based on the numbers, and it's going to look basically like this, like a flat putt.
You're totally right. You know what you made me think of there is like, do you remember the debate when Rory put his chip like 3 feet behind the hole on the final hole at Pinehurst, and people were arguing like, would you rather have a 5 footer up the hill or a 3.5 footer down the hill, like with a side hill? And it's like, honestly, I don't really know the answer to that. Like
Downhill,
I
always.
always
I
less.
would a 3.5 foot, not always less, but it's not worth a foot and a half more there at that point. And also, I think we also, if you're putting downhill there, you don't have to. I mean, I guess, I guess he did. Well, he said he did have to worry about the putt coming back in case he missed, right? Like, so
Yeah,
it's
but
just,
that's
it's just
all
about starting it
context
on
to
the
the
right
point.
line, though, right?
Yeah. 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 No, it made me think about like how feet, like when you're measuring a shot to a certain feet in putting or around the green, um, like you're just not capturing all of the context. Obviously, like short-sighted, like the penalty for being short-sighted at certain courses are really, really different, right? So, and that goes into firmness, as I know you know.
Okay, so I mean, we don't have since we don't have forever. I want to get into a little bit more of
The
maybe how
player.
you think. I mean, we know how you think it's going to play out in some areas, but like, are you saying you think it favors bombers and short hitters overall, or is that, I mean, is that your numbers, or is that like,
Okay, so
are
I
you
can,
putting your finger on the scale after?
yeah, so for me, I got a 0.18 adjustment for positive adjustment for longer players. Um, because I do think that like longer players are still going to be benefited from this golf course at a whole. Um, I didn't give, I thought that shorter players are going to perform 0.03 strokes above their baseline. And then both accurate players and inaccurate players get a boost as well, 0.18 and 0.15. So I guess like the best way of thinking about it, the way that I would describe it in like the most layman terms is that I think that there are multiple different styles that are going to be able to succeed here off the tee. I think that like you're going to see longer players at the top of the leaderboard that are really good wedge players as well. And I think that you're going to see shorter players as well. And like the key kind of, if I'm kind of summing up what I want the most in at aerodynamic, and I think this matters. I think course fit in general matters less for like great players at the top as it
Ooh,
does if you're maybe trying to find like longer shot players at the bottom. But
that's a good point.
some of the longer shot players that I would be looking for have like a very good combination of putting skill, approach, like short iron approach play, and like either distance or accuracy. And I'm actually a bit lower on the importance of around the green play at this golf course.
Why is that?
Some of that has to do with thick rough. Some of
Easier?
that has to do with the larger greens and what I think is going to be like a relatively higher greens in regulation percentage compared to certainly other PGA championships. Um, and I think with thick rough, like this is another
I think
theory
I know
I
where you're
have.
going with this. I think I know where you're going.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, if you look at, I think that thick rough devalues skill. And that's not even just like an architecture, that's not even just an architecture thing. Like, I think,
Randomness.
yeah, it's randomness. I think that if you're a really good around the green player, you have less shot options, so you have like less opportunities to flex your muscles. So, for example, I think about like somebody who's really skilled around the green, like Patrick Reed. Augusta is like his playground because he can like show off all of the different around the green shots that he is able to hit that he has in his repertoire. And you really only have one shot that you can hit out of thick rough.
If it's sitting down, you're having to hit behind it and just,
Yeah, pretty much. And
and you're not able to spin it.
this is a very anecdotal example, but I don't necessarily perhaps think it's a coincidence that somebody like Victor Hovland, has played so well at golf course like Oak Hill, Bay Hill, Olympia Fields. Like I do think it dumbs down around the green skill a little bit. And there's some short grass at Aronimink, but it's a lot of thick rough around those greens too.
So, I mean, while you might have some bad lies and some essentially really tough shots, those are tough shots that are going to be tough for everybody.
Everyone.
I I like that point, and it certainly tracks. Do you think that what about putting? I mean, with the large greens, do you think that um, it matters a lot? Do you think certain putters like are going to be better than others? Like, are you going to be closing your eyes every time Jordan Spieth has a 3-footer like I always do, and he does?
I don't mean to throw the question back on you, but this is such an interesting one to me because I think it goes into like the great I don't know if it's a debate anymore. In my opinion, I don't think putting is very important at Augusta National compared to other skills, but like because greens are difficult, I think there's probably like two skills of thought. Like if you think about a difficult green for an amateur player, right? Like I'm an okay golfer. When I get to a golf course that has like really undulating, difficult greens, I putt worse. I just like
You putt worse on the difficult.
I put worse
You're
on the
not used to
difficult
them,
green.
right?
Yeah, I put
You're not
worse
used
on
to
the
like like crazy high stimp and having to die the ball on top of this hit ridge and
I think there's more skill involved with putting. Like if I was playing my home course um, versus Augusta National, like I think on average I would putt worse. That's my opinion. I've never
you'd
played
putt
Augusta
worse.
National.
Wait, you'd putt worse at your home
At
course?
Augusta
Or,
National.
well, of
At
course you'd
Augusta
putt
National.
worse at Augusta National.
Okay, so if you take that for the
Augusta
PGA
is a much
Tour,
harder. I mean, you're also dealing with well, you don't fit the population as far as I know of PGA Tour golfers though. So
so that's what I was going to
you're
bring
an
it to next.
outlier there.
That's what I was going to bring. That's what I was going to bring it to next. Of like for PGA Tour golfers, it doesn't always seem to me like better putters separate on harder greens. I don't know if you have an opinion on that.
Honestly, I have lots of opinions here, but I'd rather not state them. I think
Totally fine.
it's a very nuanced topic, and I've gone very deep down that rabbit hole.
I agree, and that's why I was like trying to frame the example to say that of for normal golfers, this would maybe be a better way of explaining it. For normal golfers, when you're going to go to a harder green, you're obviously going to putt worse. But for PGA Tour golfers, it doesn't always work out that way. People used to talk about how, like, Augusta, you had to learn these greens. Like, there was so much experience and skill
Experience.
involved. Well, Ludwig led the field in putting the first time he
Yeah,
played
but
Augusta.
you also have a lot more data now than was available back then and
Yeah,
coverage and stuff. But also, players do putt worse on the greens at Augusta. It's just that we're talking about how they putt relative to each other. You're
everyone.
talking about how you putt. Are you saying that you're going to putt worse on a really tough green relative to other
To my expectation,
five
yes.
handicaps or whatever you are?
Yes,
You know
I
what I mean?
think
If
so.
you put both of you there, you would lose more on the greens to that other person of the same skill level.
I believe I would.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're
What
not as
about
good
you?
at, I would have said yes for sure
Yeah.
in the past, but I feel like I've gotten much, I've played a lot more courses with fast undulating greens in the last like year or two, and I feel like I just enjoy them more now and the creativity with them. And I've gotten more used to that versus back when I was playing more like slower green courses. And it's, I don't know. Now I'm like annoyed with the slow green because I'm like, I never get like my speed
Yeah.
is, I've gotten my speed more dialed to a faster green.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
from
that
some
could
recent golf
speak to it.
trips.
That could speak to it being preference. And so, like, to get back to your original question of
Bingo.
whether it favors like better putters or worse putters, like I probably would. I don't know if this is a cop out answer, but I would probably not probably. What I am doing is looking at performance on greens that I think are similar to this. Not necessarily like your putting skill over the last 6 months.
Right. Like you're in no world are you going to compare this to Harbor Town
No, definitely not.
or,
Definitely not. Or a
yeah,
lot of PGA Tour golf courses, to be honest with you.
you got more long putts.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Which in a way you could argue that takes, I mean, again, as I said, it's more nuanced, but like there's a lot less. If everybody was putting a 30-foot putt on a course, then there's going to be a lot less separation skill because just about everybody's two putting that.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
I think there's a point probably where it gets where I don't know if you have a 70-foot putt, honestly, there's probably a lot of like there's going to be more separation there. I don't know if
hmm
that's more skill necessarily. Um, but like, and if you had all 8-foot putts, there's going to be a ton of separation because the variance is higher, right?
yeah,
Variance P times one minus P, right? Or square root of P times one minus P. And if they're all 50% probability putts versus if they're all 99% probability putts.
right. And I think like if you're just thinking at a macro level, like okay, at a golf course like Aronimink, maybe let's say a golf course that has small greens, Oak Hill has really small greens. The importance of lag putting skill is going to increase at a golf course like this versus short game skill, kind of in general when you have larger greens. But that is
I
just
think you could
because,
also argue it depends on how hard short putts are.
yeah,
I
and
mean, think about like, you would normally be like, oh, Torrey Pines or something like that, but it's like Poa greens just
really
make
hard
more
to hit.
randomness. So it's like you really don't want to have a 4-footer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then that actually increases the value of chipping because the value of chipping to tap in range is more important than the value of chipping to 4 feet if the make percentage on 4-footers are lower. I don't want to get us down to a
Well,
rabbit
no,
hole.
and I'll say with all these things too, you sort of assume like, oh, this guy isn't as good with lag putting, but like people, are also changing up what they do for different venues. You know what I mean? A guy is going to
Yeah.
be more aggressive on a putt if he thinks he has an easier putt coming back.
Yeah.
Like it's just like these are professional golfers, so I think you can overthink it easily,
Totally agree, which I'm guilty
which
of
is what
all
we're
the
doing
time,
right now.
which is exactly what we're doing.
So, okay, so who do you like this week before we
Uh,
get you out of here?
um, uh, at current prices
Yeah,
or futures. Okay. Um,
or futures? Yeah, like
well,
out, like outright. Who
yeah, no. I was
who you
just
high on, who
saying
you low on?
there were a couple guys that I bet ahead of time that the
Oh,
numbers different now, but like I'm pretty high on Rom. Um, I I know that there is some noise surrounding him with whatever is going on with Lev right now. Um, and I understand all of that. Again, like we spoke to earlier in the conversation, um, I'm not going to try and attempt to quantify that on his performance. I think
think
that
about it.
Rom is hitting his irons very, very well right now. And I think that he's definitely due for some positive regression in major championships. His performance in major championships has been since he's gone to live like I don't think it's been as badly as people think. Like I thought he had a real opportunity last year on the back nine at Quail Hollow. And I just think that like his game is at a very well-rounded place right now where there isn't really a glaring deficiency that I could speak to. And I think on a golf course like Aronimink, where we've talked about like it's PGA Tour plus, like everything is going to help. Everything is going to be more accentuated perhaps than a potential PGA Tour golf course. I think like a well-rounded player like Rahm has a high floor on this golf course. I actually think Ludwig is like another example of a guy that is doing a lot of things well and has been underrated around the greens this year and underrated as a putter this year. And obviously, everyone's going to talk about the ball striking, but I would say Rahm and Ludwig are two players that I think at the top I have a lot of interest in.
Any mega long shots you like?
Yeah. Thomas Dietrich is playing some. I think Thomas Dietrich is playing some really interesting golf on live. He actually finished top 10 at Valhalla, and not that I think these golf courses are overly similar, but he's a player where like he has that really good combo of the three things I kind of talked about of like plus distance, really good wedge play, and really good putting skill. Thomas Dietrich's a really, really good putter. And so I think it's a really good spot for him. Can I ask you, or do you want to save it for when you come on mine?
I don't want to say anything about who I like, but I don't disagree on Rahm. I think uh, honestly, I don't know. I don't know who we have positions on yet or don't. I'd have to. I mean, I know some, but I mean, I don't know where the market's gone. I've been down this modeling rabbit hole recently.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give a mega long shot. I like.
Give a mega long shot.
Well, actually, it's not that mega. What do you define as mega?
Over 100 to 1 at a major.
Okay, so
Guys over 100 to 1
we're gonna
rarely
say
win.
500 to ones or something.
No. Guys over 100 to 1 is very rare for them to win majors. Like if you're betting someone over 100 to 1, I think that qualifies as a long shot.
Yeah, I mean they're rare. Well, I don't want to get all nerdy, but it all depends on the distribution in that particular year because there could be years where there's not as many, where the 100 to ones occupy more probability than others.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Let me make sure I got what I wanted on this guy first. Okay, we have to win 300 on him. I want more though. More is available. Yes.
Is that at a PM?
It is.
Okay.
I like, and as we like, I'm literally clicking this right now, so who knows how long it'll be there. But somebody keeps refreshing volume, so I'm loving this. I like one Michael Thor Bjornsson.
And
Yeah,
totally with you there.
That's the winner right there.
He's a Boston guy. Did you know that? He's a
okay. I take it back. I take it all back. Fade.
No, I think he's comfortable, and I think you could like anecdotally make the argument that he's probably comfortable in Northeast bent grass, those tree lined golf courses. Yeah, I like that.
Okay, Andy, it was a pleasure having you on finally, almost a year later.
Yeah.
I think it was worth the wait, and I think our audience will concur. Good luck this week with your betting. And
you as well.
Hopefully we have lots to celebrate next week.
You got it. Thanks, Rufus. Appreciate it.
Bet the process.